Well, good evening. I'm Walter Willis, and I'm the Executive Director of your sister agency, the Solid Waste Agency of Lake County, and I've had that position for about 5 years, and I'm honored to be here and see how another agency functions similar to ours. What I want to talk about today is a little bit about your planning authority. You probably recognize your planning authority, but I'll just give you a real quick overview of the state statutes regarding that. Some thoughts on why you might think about preparing a plan. And when I'm talking about a plan, I'm not really getting into the business aspect of your operations because you do own a facility. I'm more talking about the public policy as far as waste reduction and diversion and material recovery as far as the planning process. And I know you might want to marry those two eventually. I also want to talk about our effort to develop a plan to get to 60% recycling, and I'll give you some of my final thoughts. Solid Waste Planning and Recycling Act specifically encourages regional planning through intergovernmental cooperation. Our municipal joint action agencies, by definition, represent regional cooperation. You do have the ability to go to Cook County and get them to delegate the planning authority to you. Actually, Lake County delegates the planning authority to SWANCC, but ultimately the county has to adopt that document to give it that validity under state law. You have the option to do that. And if you want the policy statements in your plan to be binding as far as the location and the number of pollution control facilities, you would have to have the county adopt your sub-regional plan as part of the overall Cook County plan. There's another law out there that predates the Planning and Recycling Act. It's called the Local Solid Waste Disposal Act. Again, it provides you the authority to prepare and implement a solid waste management plan. And its planning requirements are very similar, but it's just a different avenue you could use to do your planning.
Is the Local Solid Waste Disposal Act superseded by the Planning and Recycling Act?
You know, one of the citing criteria for a pollution control facility is it has to be consistent with the plan adopted by the county, and it says either pursuant to the Planning and Recycling Act or the Local Solid Waste Disposal Act. So they're kind of interchangeable in a way, but the Planning and Recycling Act really put more requirements as far as deadlines when counties had to have plans and mandates that they get them done, and put a little more specificity on the things that had to be in that plan. So they're kind of you can pick one or the other, but I would say the Planning and Recycling Act is kind of your guiding.
Cook County just did an update of their plan that was adopted by the Cook County Board about 3 months ago, 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, they were a little behind in getting that done. You're supposed to do it every 5 years. We're not going to pick on you guys, but I do want to mention the plan itself that you guys adopted in 1991. I'm proud to say I was working for Devon at the time, and this was one of the very first big plans that I worked on as a project manager. So I was very proud of the fact that this was an award-winning plan. It was, I think, as far as the reasoning back then for doing it was we needed some really good numbers on how much waste is being generated, how much is recycling, to kind of put a vision out there for the whole Balefield project you were working on at the time. But you do have a history of developing a plan, and so it's something you might want to revisit is using this as a springboard to do another type of plan that I'll talk about here. Again, I think it demonstrated your commitment to collecting good quality data. We really bugged a lot of the towns and the haulers to get good information because we wanted it, because we do a lot of programs, and if we can't measure what we're doing and show that that program is successful, then we're kind of hunting around in the dark. And so it's very important, I think, to get good metrics. And it's been a journey in my whole life, and it's still very frustrating to get good metrics, but we have to continue to try so that we can really evaluate what we're doing. Not to be critical, but I guess I'm being critical. I looked at the Cook County plan, and it's a general document. I mean, they do encapsulate some of the SWANCC stuff in there, but it really wasn't organically grown out of SWANCC. And it doesn't have a lot of real hard, good recommendations that you can take back to your board and say, this is the recommendation. Oh, I get what they want there. A lot of these recommendations are just so general, like, well, where do I go with that? So you need something a little more specific, I believe, to really get your members energized and understanding what you want to achieve. Why prepare a plan? I think it becomes a real important blueprint, and our 60% plan really has achieved that for us. We were kind of wandering a little bit as far as kind of stagnating on our recycling rate and going, why can't we do more? Well, we needed to articulate what that was. So I think the recommendations must be specific and tailored to you. And once you have that blueprint, it's an effective way to track your progress. Again, looking at those metrics, looking at did you implement recommendation A1 or not. And I think it enhances a little accountability amongst the members. In fact, I like to call it a little friendly competition. And I'm sure that we all like a little competition. So who's recycling more than the other? You know, who's got the more pounds per household per year? Who's implemented the cart program? Who has pay-as-you-throw options? You know, who's got the commercial franchises? These are all things that we can share with each other and learn from each other. Again, if you want control over the types of pollution control facilities that are put into your boundaries, the way to do that is through the solid waste plan. It becomes a powerful tool because it's tied back to the siting process. Anybody that wants to propose a facility must demonstrate that they're consistent with your plan. Theoretically, if they can't do that, they shouldn't be granted siting. Municipal MJAAS, that's Municipal Joint Action Agencies, I think they provide a unique platform. I think SWANCC and SWANCC are testimony to the power of working together. We're the leaders in the state with our programs, and I think that's something to be proud of, and I think the reason we're so successful is because of that regionalization, the fact that we're sitting around a table sharing ideas. I think it's a very important platform to really take advantage of. Now our plan itself, we do the 5-year updates. Like I said, we had put some, we've got 2 landfills in our county still, but we've got about 10 to 14 years capacity. They keep settling, so I don't know, they keep throwing garbage in. I don't know how Moose does it, but we have capacity, but we talked about in the 09 plan, well, we got to have a longer vision. Are we going to solve our problem within Lake County, or are we going to ship it out like everybody else does? So we opened the door in our plan. Before that, our plan had said, no transfer stations, no landfills, no nothing. We don't need anything right now. We're good. Well, this last plan, I said, well, 10 years, we got to start thinking ahead. We might need to open the door in our plan to other options. And so we started talking about that, got the environmental groups kind of agitated, and ultimately we put a recommendation in that 09 plan. Before we start looking at the next generation of disposal technology, we need to do a better job of harvesting what's in our materials in our waste stream right now. So that recommendation came out that we required SWANCC and the Lake County Board jointly appointed a 27-member stakeholder group, and their task was to develop a plan to achieve a 60% diversion rate by 2020. We're right around 38%, 45%, you know. The numbers can get a little, give or take a little, but we're doing well, and we all know that to get to those higher levels is not going to be easy. We're going to have to get into the multifamily, we're going to have to do a better job with our commercial, and we're going to have to do a better job with our construction demo. I think our single-family household is pretty good shape, but you got to have carts, you got to have pay-as-you-throw options, you got to have education, and so those are some of the things that we were focused on with the plan.
Have you looked into again?
Yes. We're working with you guys right now to, we jointly held an event in Highland Park, the Greentown. We had a nice big event, about 100 people showed up, and we're just trying to get the synergy going. The haulers talking to the food scrap generators, to the compost sites. There's a lot more going on than we knew. I mean, we put together that big chart at a table, and we've got, I think, Cameron, about 350 food scrap generators are actually having their food scrap collected by haulers. And we've got dedicated routes out there now, numerous haulers, at least 3 that I know of. So there's a lot going on. And as far as the planning process, it takes time. So if you think you want to move fast on it, well, good luck. Might burn your staff out. But we met monthly. We had a large group. We wanted to have broad representation. We had all the haulers involved. Very important, I think, to get the private sector involved, all the compost facility operators, the C&D site operators, the environmental groups, municipal representation, county representation, all sitting around a table trying to build consensus on some recommendations. Ultimately, it was approved in 2011. And then my thought on, all right, the task force spent all this time over here doing this, and the board's over here kind of waiting. Obviously, I'm updating them what's going on. But now it's time for the members, because that's where things happen with the members and your hauling contracts and the ordinances you can pass, and things that you have the power to do. It needed to come back to you, and you guys had to internalize it a little bit. I'm not going to write a plan and then nobody look at it, because what's the purpose? And so we sent it back. We went out and spent time with our members, did presentations at village board meetings. I wanted them to understand what was in that document. And made a nice easy chart, kind of listed all the recommendations. I'll show you here quickly. And this became our checklist. Who's doing what? Who has the pay-as-you-throw option in there? Who is franchised, expanded their franchise to include multifamily, and brought recycling to the multifamily as a part of doing that? Who's got the commercial franchises? Who's got the e-scrap drop-offs? We're starting to try to get all these things categorized. And so we had them go through, and we had some controversial recommendations in there. We said if you don't meet the certain disposal goal by a certain date, you would have to have mandatory programs. Well, some of our members don't like the word mandatory. And so we gave them the option to say, all right, you can either accept the document or you can approve it. And like attorneys say, that's a distinction, not a difference. But the exception was a little less vigorous support, but still, we're going to make a good faith effort to implement these things. And if you approved it, that meant you're all in, theoretically. You're not going to encumber future boards, but you're all in at this date and time. And about a quarter of the towns approved, the rest accepted. But it was important for them to go through that process with their legislative bodies to understand what the document was, because we spent a lot of time on it and we wanted something to happen. What was our approach? We aligned our data and our planning with the data we collect. I think Steve, when he collects data, you guys collect it from the residential sector, the commercial sector, and the C&D. Well, the waste industry runs their businesses the same way. They have guys that do nothing but residential collection, commercial collection, and demolition collection. So it made sense to plan in those three areas, those three buckets. And we set a goal for each sector to reach 60%. And we worked very hard on each and every one of the recommendations. We would painstakingly sometimes, but most of the recommendations came out with almost unanimous approval. We had a few where people were saying, no, I can't support that. The haulers, when I said, hey, I want a model contract for the businesses out there who are getting, kind of taken advantage of with your fine print. What do you mean? And we don't do that. I was like, well, so, we got into a little give and take on a few things, and we had to kind of work down so that we had some compromise. Because we wanted it to be a document that when I sit down across the table from a hauler, when I'm helping one of my towns negotiate a contract, I'm going to say, hey, you were at the meetings, we talked about doing this. And they're like, yeah. And even they are taking advantage of it, saying, coming to their towns going, hey, why don't you expand to the multifamily? We'll give you a quota. So it's created some real action that's going on with our members. Here's the results. We had a lot of recommendations. It's on our website. It's great reading, so I really encourage you guys to take a look at it. And we did have 20 recommendations for the residential sector and 14 for the commercial. And C&D is real simple. If you've got infrastructure, if you've got a recycling facility in your area, you might as well pass an ordinance saying you got to use it. I mean, we've got numerous municipalities that are now doing that. And we work with the contractors, and they're like, well, we use the recycling guys anyway. Or we write an ordinance that if it's the landfill option if the recycling option is within 10% of the landfill option, you got to go with the recycling option. So there's different ways to skin that ordinance, but a lot of things are going on there. With this whole data thing, trying to track recycling, I mean, I could probably boost my 38% recycling rate if I hired a full-time person that had to do nothing but collect data. what is Jewel taking off the back end of the store? What's Walgreens? And boom, 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 all that stuff that we have a hard time collecting. I could get my number out. But that's a lot of work and a lot of effort. And what we're seeing the trend is to look at the disposal number. We know what that is. People are paying fees on that. Landfills are paying fees on that. We know what disposal is. We have really good numbers on that, especially with our residential franchises. We get all that data. And so we kind of took what other states are doing, what Europe is doing, is they're looking at just what is the disposal rate. If we drive that number down from 4.77, ultimately our goal is 3.48, we know we've done something good. We've either source reduced, recycled more, or hopefully not. The economy continues to be the drain on our numbers. But so we're going to focus on the pounds per capita per day. And we set some goals for our members for the residential sector. They have to get it down to a certain number. And if they don't reach that number by 2015 or 2020, that's where those mandatory programs kick in. You must pass a mandatory recycling ordinance. You must implement food scrap or collection at the curb. So that's where those mandatory programs came in. And that, I mean, that did cause a little bit of consternation for the members, but you know, pragmatically, when 2015 rolls around, we'll have that discussion then. That's kind of the way we looked at it.
Also, when you looked at these respective recommendations, did you talk with the member communities about pricing? And what impact those recommendations may or may not have on pricing?
Yes, part of our plan does have not only the recommendation and the time frame we want it done, but we tried our best to look at a fiscal impact. We didn't spend a lot of time crunching a lot of numbers because I didn't have the horsepower to do that, and we were more focused on the programmatic things. But most of the things we're talking about, except for food scrap, when you're introducing a third container in another truck, most of the recommendations don't have much cost to them. It's optimizing, like Devin was saying, optimizing what you're doing now. Pay-as-you-throw options. If you give your residents a limited option, usually the haulers bid that lower. So that $18 a month, it's $16.50 if you want the limited option. You can't put out all the garbage you want anymore, but you can, if you're a good recycler, you don't have a problem. So yeah, that's always, you know, we got a lot of city managers and like mayors and stuff on our board as well, and cost is always on the forefront of everybody's mind. Let's see. Like I said, implementation is key. We're tracking everybody's numbers. We haven't got it on our website yet, but ultimately there will be a spot on the website you're going to go, and if you're in Mundelein, where are they at? Where's Highland Park at? You know, where's Deerfield at? And so that's a way to kind of keep track of things. The commercial sector, we don't have specific information for each town, unless you're a franchise town. So we set a countywide goal for that. And we have a checklist that we prepared for everybody. And obviously education is very important. We're doing a very good job of creating access for these programs. We need to tell people why they should recycle. And almost as importantly, how to be better recyclers. There's a lot of things going on that people don't know that they can recycle out there. And so that's the other message. We got lucky on that. Can't really see that probably, but that's the checklist, and all the recommendations are on that side. This is one of my towns, and you can see that we're tracking whether they've implemented those recommendations or not, and we're doing that with every town. And we were fortunate to be chosen by Curbside Value Partnership, and they came in with their professional staff and came up with a great education campaign for us. It's Recycle First, Trash Last. I encourage you to go to our website and check it out. That has helped bring new energy to what we're doing as well. You can have all the policy in the world, but you gotta have a little education as well. Like I said, I'm very, very proud of most of my members for really taking this seriously. And they're spending staff time on it. And most of the new contracts that I'm helping negotiate, we're getting a limited garbage option. This unlimited garbage thing is a thing of the past as far as I'm concerned. We're going to segue to it. We're still going to get people the unlimited option, and ultimately the next contract iteration, it'll probably go away. I already have numerous towns that already have, they're limited right now. So we got pay-as-you-throw options, we got sticker programs, and that really does create an incentive for people to recycle. We've got action going on in the C&D. We've got facilities being built in our county that are going to help us when we pass these mandatory recycling ordinances for C&D. There really is no cost impact. You call MBL, you call Waste Management, one's going to go recycle, one's going to the landfill. They're about the same. So that's real important. Like we talked about, the food scrap thing is really starting to take off. But we need route density. We need more generators doing this, or the cost will not get down to where we want it to be. We're still going off the commercial franchises, so love it when the SWMA shows up in one of my towns and tries to talk them out of doing what they're doing. So we're going to have that coming up in Deerfield, Libertyville, and Grace Lake here this winter. I'll have basically winter with that debate. And multifamily. To be honest, that's an area that is tough to tackle. And to me, as opposed to a mandatory ordinance saying you must, if you're a property owner, you must provide recycling, nobody ever enforces those. Let's be realistic. To me, the best way to do it is through your contract, through your franchise. I mean, into your contract, if you don't get containers out to those multifamily units under our contract, I will enforce that. So that, I think, is a better way to go. My final thoughts, you guys have the authority to prepare a more formal document and roll it into the Cook County plan. Personally, I would look into that. But you don't have to, and you haven't in the past when you did this plan in '91. You did it because you had a different purpose. But if you want control over pollution control facilities within your boundaries, it's something you need to strongly consider. Cook County Plan is too general. I would say moving forward, it's such a huge heterogeneous county, it's tough to get one plan prepared for Cook County. And so that's why I think, as a sub-region, you need to look that way. Joint action agencies, hey, we've got a great platform here. And I'm glad to see you guys looking at sustainability, because ultimately I think we got a great platform for sustainability as well. A lot of things we can accomplish individually, but when we work together and buy en masse, and send signals to the marketplace through our regional buying power, we can do a lot more. So I think it's a great platform to optimize. You guys have been leaders. SWANCC and SWANCC, we've done a lot of things to push things in this state, I think in a positive way. And I think a planning process, if you're thinking about it, will bring new focus and enhance cooperation. I know we've got a little private sector kind of looking at you guys going, hey, we can do it better. Well, let's sit down with those guys. Let's try to work together. Let's get partnerships going here. And that's our model. I think it's a model we should all be looking for, is cooperation between the public and the private sectors. And I think it's worked for us. I don't know why it wouldn't work for you guys. If you get some recommendations that you can sit there and go, I know what that means, and I can do that, then things will get done. If it's a general, we should do this and that, where do I start? So I think it would bring a new energy to pushing on some of these things to get yourself to a higher diversion rate. And that's all I got.